right, welcome to the Tim Castle Show. I wanted to kick things off with a bit of a new introduction because we've been very busy here. Coming out soon in September is The First Domino. Now, this is my next book. It's actually my fifth book. And this book is for anyone in business who's looking to accelerate their sales, to open more doors, and to become a magnet for sales success, for business development, and for business expansion. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 years. And I've put everything I know into this framework. That the first domino is something that if you're going into a new role and you need to create revenue impact quickly, if you need to land clients like your first flagship client that's going to radically change the face of your business, bringing credibility, bringing product market fit, but also that all important revenue for you to get more investment, this is the book for you. It is recommended by Will Guidara, James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy, David Meltzer. He was on Shark Tank and he's chairman of the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and Mark Raffan. He is Negotiation Ninja, company and podcast and negotiation expert. And I think just to drive this home for you, this is all about giving. This is all about the value in the book. Like, I've put my heart and soul in this because I know that this is the formula to get leverage into your sales process, to be able to take more asymmetric risk, and then to be able to win that first client that means everything. So whether you're joining a new job, you're in sales and you want to elevate your career to the next level, or you just want to have the best year yet, this is a book that I recommend you check out, and it's available for pre-order now. I've got the links, they're in the show notes. Have a look. I reckon this could do the job. So that's the pitch. Now let's get on with the show. And this is the show where we meet courageous people doing inspirational things around the world. The guests out there are so awesome, and their stories, I want to bring them to life because they have action-packed lessons. They're in the field. They're at the coalface. They've broken through and they've made headway. These stories are incredible. These people, I thank them immensely for spending time with us to share their knowledge, their wisdom, their truth. And they show up every day to do this. So, brilliant guests. I hope you love them. If you do, please rate and subscribe the show. Leave a comment. It means a lot. It allows me to get better guests on the show and to keep expanding. But more than that, it allows me to engage in the conversations with you all and bring this home to these guests and to really go full circle. So, without further ado, let's get on with the show. So today I had the privilege and the honor of interviewing Annalie Howling, someone that I love to have on the show. She's got a new book out that I recommend you all buy called Unapologetic. And the reason is because it's all about unshackling yourself from shame. We've all been there, right? We're people pleasing. We're behaving how society has trained us to think, and we're acting in situations the way we think we need to act to get love, to not be rejected, and to validate ourselves. And all of that is inhibiting us from living a bigger, better life. And that's what this book and Annalie will talk you through. She was amazing. She was radiant. She was shining. She was in her glory. And I think this episode will speak to a lot of you about something that often goes misunderstood and hidden. We're shameful about our shame. We don't want to reveal it. And so we're in this constant state of acting in our lives. And so we talk through this in many facets. We talk about sex, about relationships, about career, and about you as the individual, being unapologetic about who you are, owning that and letting it out so that you can shine, feel liberated, and walk in a whole new life. There's no going back after you hear what she's about to say. Let's go, Annalie Howling. Okay, Annalie Howling, author of Unapologetic, Unshackle Your Shame, Reclaim Your Power. Welcome back to your second time on the show.
Thank you so much.
I am thrilled to have you here. It's been a hot minute since you've been on the show, but you've been so busy, and the topics, I mean, having just read your new book, the topics and the way you explain it, it touched my soul in ways I can't describe using words. And as an author, that's really hard for me because I'm like, I should be able to do that, but I can't. You've done it. You've put magic into this, and I think you've made me feel unapologetic about who I am.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Well, that was my raison d'etre. So if I've done that, I appreciate it. I love it's really anyone that's having these experiences reading a book and it getting past the armor, right? Like you saying, it connected to you on a soul level, and that's what I wanted to do with it. I mean, you've read it. It's not a pretty read. It's quite a difficult read, and that was the point. As in, it's not, it's we whipped through it pretty quickly, and I again designed it in that way. I didn't want it to be a clunky, chunky
Mm,
how-to that people had to work on, because everyone's bloody exhausted, right? And I didn't want to add in yet another thing. You read something and it's like, right, go away and implement these new 10 steps, because to be honest, like, we're done. Like, I can't I'm it's like Buckaroo right now. If you put the sheriff's hat on me on a saddle, I'm gonna go. So I can't do any more. And so I wanted to create with a book, just as the page is turned or you listen to it, loads of people are loving it on audiobook. As you're going through it on a walk or whatever you're doing, you're feeling your system change just from the experience of reading it. And that's the messages I'm getting from people that are reading it. They're having very physical kind of like releases from reading it, and it's not something you have to work at. I was so determined, like I say, exhausted single mom like me. I have got amazing books that are how to's, they're incredible, but when it's like, and now you have to implement this thing and you have to do that thing, it's like, oh, I just can't. I just haven't got it in me to do that as well. So I love that you've said that it kind of gets through our stuff and into our soul.
yeah, so what I love about it is the rawness, the authenticity, and it's the way you tell it like it is. But because it's really hard to be that vulnerable in a book, but that's where the magic is. And the fact that you haven't got the steps there to go, you must do this, must do this, that's where the power is, because you're unpacking the things that people are feeling, going, hey, I've never heard someone say this. Oh, are you allowed to say that? And then because you're
Mm.
saying it, it gives you permission to feel it. And then there's parts of the book where you're just like, I think when you talk through your own experiences of, I've got it written down because I cannot come up with these words the way you do. But you talk about a couture of desire, a cloak of desire, and once you went down that path, you knew there was no
Mm.
kind of going back. It's going to show you something, and in fact, that's how the whole book feels to me. Is that when you allow yourself to listen to it, and I listened to it because I like your voice and I like the way that you walk it through, and there's different characters in the book.
Yeah.
It takes you on an adventure, a story that you can connect to every piece of it. It's sort of there's no bit that's boring. I think that's the
Oh,
there's
I
no
love
bit
that.
that's you know what I mean. There's no bit that's like, oh, can we skip past this bit? You're like, wow, we're going there.
Yeah, I love that. The other voice, by the way, is my really good friend Maya Sondi, who was in Line of Duty. So we have, as you know, you switch between two voices because it's my story and then it's either clients or experts. And it wasn't right for me to be both voices. So when Maya steps in, that's, she's doing her thing as well. I just think, again, that adds to this kind of, yeah, you're almost listening in conversation at times and kind of taking you through it. And I love that. I absolutely hate being bored. So there were times with some of the editors, I was like, either I was saying I think that's a bit repetitive, or they're like, no, you do actually need to, you forget that we need to explain some of these things or whatever. And then there were also things that were honestly so unhinged. Like, my desire is that one day I get to put the unabridged version out, because I wrote 126,000 words and then they cut it to about 45. Yeah.
Oh
And
wow.
it is, the detail in, especially sort of the yoga studio section and things like that. They were like, we're going to need to cut that back. So yeah,
I
that's
was referring to the yoga studio part.
I know,
I'm sure
and that
you
is
went
my
into more.
yeah. Yeah, that is my way more. And that is my favorite section. It's my favorite writing. So I love that you pulled that out.
Yeah.
I enjoyed writing that, and I enjoy that being kind of like a showcase of my writing as well. So yeah, love.
Well, why don't we go there? Because I think that was an important part that I could really feel changed me in a way, because I was like, this is, and obviously being a man thinking about it versus also thinking about women and knowing the experience of thinking about how they might feel. It was so interesting. And I think, so why are we ashamed, or ashamed even to talk about, or why does shame appear in sex and our own sort of sexual liberation and that journey? Because
Yeah, I think it starts so early. I obviously been talking about this book a lot and thinking about it a lot. It's even language that, people, slang words that people use at school and, things like that. So you grow up with this, I don't know if one night stands apply to men. I don't know if you in the lads have ever said, did you have a one night stand? Things like that. I don't know, and I could really get into all the boo the patriarchy. It's not that. It's just where language, words, things that are laced with opportunities for shame to add in. Now, there are patriarchal structures that are out of date but still exist in some places. You grow up being a good girl, wanting to be a good girl. That means tidying up your room nicely and, not challenging and not being challenging, or there's that special word bossy, which is a hair trigger for me, and which again only exists in the female realm. So what we do instead is we try and kind of put ourselves into a bit more of a container of acceptability, because I don't want to be criticized, because that might lead to my rejection, and obviously that's our biggest social fear, is that being alone, and that's our physiology kicking in even. So sex, what were your family like talking about it? What was it like I remember the sex education class at school that was one
One
class, and I
class,
think in like,
yeah,
yeah,
that
one
I
class.
missed.
Oh well, sozzy, as my daughter would say, sozzy. Yeah, one class. But I don't think it's moved on that much, because bless her, she came back those days. She's just turned 9 and went, "Oh, mummy, we had to talk about changes." And I was like, "Right, mummy's ready. Mummy is so ready for this." Like, mummy's like, "Right, let's." What did they say? Like, I'm so ready to pick up that conversation. And she was like, "No, that was it. We're going to have some changes." I was like, "Oh, right, okay."
So it's not changed.
No, so
Basically,
basically,
nothing
no. I
has
think probably,
transformed.
see, so this is actually a really interesting point, because I imagine the teachers that's in their curriculum to say to a group of awkward 8, 9 year
Mm.
olds, they're probably like, "Oh God, not this again." And they probably kind of minimize it themselves, just like, let's just get through this lesson that I have to tick off to say that I delivered it, to meet my KPIs or whatever. But it probably, because it kind of stems from everywhere. We look at all the plays we take on this information. And as you would have seen in the book as well, there's me talking about the yoga studio, which we've alluded to, which was me going on this female sexual empowerment course. But I mean, really, I would say, yes, the empowerment happened at the end. But for me, it was the unraveling course. For me, it was
Mm.
the, I write in that section that I was reclaimed and ruined in the same moment.
I've got
That I
literally
write.
that you reclaimed and ruined. If shame could no longer police my pleasure, this opened up an entirely new life for me, and one that would cost me my old one. Mm.
Yes, because that is what happened. And, it's a group of women in this yoga studio in Covent Garden on a Saturday, like randomly, and it's the start, you're so awkward. And we're a group of women together. I've seen my friends naked loads. It's not but we've never seen each other in sort of in an intimate setting, or even like ask questions or been curious, because you're just sort of given information over time. This is good, that's bad. And I think, and you don't really, I don't think we've been encouraged to ask questions. The thing we definitely had not been encouraged to do was ask questions about us. I think the whole focus for sex, and I'm just going to speak very stereotypically, like heterosexual, male, female. I think the focus, certainly when I was growing up, is, did you perform well? Did you do something? It was like whack-a-mole. Did you do the right things first, that everything went appropriately? Did you, and then it gets into more perfectionism. Did you look a certain way? Did you, perform a certain way? And we could go down the rabbit hole of porn and things like that. But I don't even necessarily think it is entirely derived from that place. It's just there is no source of information that you can go to and be like, look, I think that's probably a bit entertaining porn. I heard this story. I think that's probably, you know, not quite right. Or that doesn't quite sound like me, but I know I can go to this accurate source of information and get it from there. That didn't exist. So we're kind of piecing it together from conversations, from, we're in hyper arousal, looking for signs or signals from someone else, a partner or something like that. And, it can become this performative thing. I really, from that course, found, discovered slash light bulb moment that absolutely anybody, fairly unskillful level, can be sexual. Like, having sex is not difficult really, but and you can also be really unintimate during sex. You can have almost no
Absolutely.
intimacy but have sex. And I was like, oh wow. I mean, that was a really big moment for me, was that you think it's a really intimate act, and it can be, but it can also just literally be very kind of mechanical almost. And so going through this course, being with these women as the days went on, I mean, I won't ruin it for the listeners because it's such a good chapter and I think everyone should listen to it, you know, but we're doing these exercises with like really learning about erogenous zones with a feather and how slowly you have to touch someone. I mean, it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable because you're like, how slow can I possibly move, you know, to do this? And but then when you're experiencing it and also trying to give someone a nice experience to feel into their own body, to learn about themselves, you realize that's the point. You become so vulnerable in those moments, and that's what creates real intimacy. That's what creates real pleasure. Like the divinity of that kind of touch versus sometimes something that could be a bit painful or not pleasurable, but in theory be much more intimate. I'd argue absolutely not. Having that slow, sensual, completely, you know, no masks can be worn in that moment. You have to really be fully in and surrender, if you like you might in yoga, like you might in something else. You can't force yourself through yoga poses. You'll end up, as I learned when I first started trying to force myself through yoga, you'll end up ripping something, you know, some kind of tendon or something like that. So, and it's the same in sex and pleasure and pleasure and desire. And I realized that I absolutely, and I'm going to take a stand here. We talked off air about what I like doing, and I do retreats. I do fantastic retreats. And every retreat that I am on, we will end up having a conversation about desire and the damage that lack of desire and pleasure can have on an individual, obviously on a couple, but definitely to an individual. If you feel this lack of desire in your life, and I'm not talking about how you have to walk down the street and people are wolf whistling and being like, oh, love that for you. It's not that. It's about having that sensation. It's like it is a lifeblood. It's something that lives within me all the time. You know, going to like the Kundalini energy, things like that. But it is a part of who I am, and it's a part. And I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. But I think we weren't given access to this world that I discovered, and when oh my goodness. And the two universal truths, which I put in the book, that just astounded me, but also liberated me, were that no one in that room knew how to ask for what they want. No one. It was the most awkward, difficult part of
That's
the
really
course.
vulnerable when you have to
Oh my
ask
God.
what you want.
What they did in the course to help you, I mean, bearing in mind this is like another person that's on the same course as you, so we're in it together, and it was still really hard to do. You know, it wasn't like asking your partner or something. It was you blindfolded your partner and you kind of whispered it into their ear, so that again you weren't under the intensity of say eye contact, or it was everyone appreciated and recognized it is a difficult thing to do. And in that moment you're like, oh, it's not just me that finds this
Mm.
really hard and really challenging, because I'm kind of trying to uncondition all of the things that I learned, because I don't want to be seen as being too much by saying, oh, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Actually, that's a bit rough for me. Or can we slow that down? Or I'd love us to go back to that, or whatever, you know, my body. And then you're like, but of course, because my body, I train my body in a different way to the next person. I eat in a different way to somebody else. Like, of course, I'm going to have different pleasure receptors to another person. But we're kind of just told that we have to stay in this box, in this smaller place, and just, you know, make sure someone else is okay. And if you happen to get something at the end, then lucky you, you know, but it's like, that's what it was. So yeah, we didn't know how to ask for what we wanted, and everyone really struggled to receive. And I don't just mean the obvious thing that pops into our head is receiving, like oral sex. I mean receiving in the sense of like a touch. You know, you feel
Mm.
like you're putting someone out. You know, like when I was taking the turn of the feather over my body, which is how that starts, this lovely girl, I always felt a bit bad, like, oh, you know, I'm taking up too much space. Genuinely, like, we're on this course together to learn. I'm gonna do her next. Let's her turn in the exercise next. And that was what was happening throughout the days, was that we ended up, it was as pleasurable almost to witness and honor and give the experience to the person you're working with on whatever exercise you're doing. And we did a lot of things. There's a lot of things that got cut from that
I
section.
am really interested. I think you should release definitely release the unabridged version. But
Let's take a stand for the unabridged version, particularly of that section. I agree. And then I'm
so,
actually going to, so like, for people that end up buying it and listening, the thing I also now get asked most is, are you going to put on one of those courses? And the answer is yes. I'm going to do it next year. I'm going to do 3 or 4 of them in different cities.
Brilliant.
Yes.
Brilliant. I think that'd be really, really good because intimacy and, like you said, desire, that part is just so misunderstood, so linked to shame because you have shame because I think you're doing the thing that you think you should be doing, yet you feel shame for like not honoring your own desires and also not understanding your own desires. Like in the book, you talk about like you should ask yourself, what do I want? And then make a list of 100 things and not even like limit yourself. Like really go there, really imagine what
Yeah.
you want, not what you think you should want, and all of this. So,
Mhm. And it feels really uncomfortable because you don't want to be seen as being too much. There's this inherent thing, particularly with women, where it's like Icarus, we'll fly too close to the sun and something terrible will happen to us. It's almost like this, we have this inbuilt self-sabotage button that we get too happy, we get too much. And so instead, this is becoming uncomfortable for me. I better do something, in which case, fuck this all off. And like, instead I'll jump up and down the big self-sabotage button. And I think that because we don't know how to ask what we want, because we don't even know it's available to
mm,
us, and then we think we're ashamed for not being happy with what you've got. What's wrong with you? We think we can put this piece, this desire in a box and shove it in a cupboard and be like, well, I've got nice holidays and a new Range Rover, so that should be enough for me. And it's not. And then we feel ashamed of ourselves for that. And what's wrong with us? And that then is revalidating old beliefs. And, all I can say is from that weekend spent with those amazing women, different ages, there for different reasons, and it was such an impactful journey for me in finding in reclaiming myself, but just getting to meet myself again and realizing, wow, this is not only that little voice that's always been there, this is actually such a huge part of who I am as a person. And what was deeply inside me, high shame, we try and hide it inside, had to be worn on the outside from there on in. It had to be something that was not only embodied, but, expressed outwardly. And it has been ever since. But I think that safety, that connection, that experience was something that was so important for me. And shame it could not get anywhere near any of us in that room. None of us, because we were in community, we're in connection, and because we had literally, unclothed. But not only that, we'd taken away our acts, we'd
mm.
taken off our masks, we'd taken off our roles, but really we'd just gone to this deep place of kind of almost fuck it, we're here now, so let's just be who we actually are and find out about it. And then that's when you leave truly changed.
And that was it, right? Because you went into the room as you being, you call it the performer, like you volunteered to go
Yeah.
first. You were like, yeah, I've got no
Yeah.
boundaries, I'm fine. This is what I do all the time, and you had all this kind of pretend to
Yeah.
mask the fear of I have no idea what we're going to be doing and this is a bit unknown. And then you talk through and as you explain in the story, like you basically cared less about your perceived perfection and you cared more about pleasure. And
Mhm.
there's this presence that you can kind of have where you're just in the room and pleasure can be not you're not feeling shame for feeling pleasure. It's actually the opposite. And you realize, like you said, that there is so much more out there to do and experience that is in you. And then you carry that
Mm.
nature with you. That's what you're talking about externally. It's with you all the time. So it's how you go through,
Yeah.
walk through the world. It's how there's certain things you can touch that make you feel pretty into that. And like there's certain things you would aesthetically you would put in your room and feelings, energy, world, like it's all there. It's all this. But if you never tapped into it, you would never know it existed.
Oh yeah, or you feel like you're wrong. Like you look at, like you say, you look at, I don't know, interior design, or you think about changing up a room or something. You're like, well, I couldn't possibly paint my walls dark and put. I'm obviously describing my bedroom. I couldn't possibly have like dark walls and then like Helmut Newton pictures everywhere, and like it's like the most sexual kind of pleasure dome ever, and I bloody love it. And I also sleep really well because I paint my walls dark. It's great. So that is how I want to express myself. And then I try and actively cultivate pockets of pleasure in my day. So for me, like I when I go to bed, I'm excited about having a coffee in the morning. That's how much I like having a coffee. Like a really good one. I'm like, yes, tomorrow I wake up, get have a coffee. And I love to like take some time over that, not just like get it in the system. I mean, obviously, sometimes when it's school run and stuff, we don't get to maybe do it in the same way, but I love to make a coffee. I love to sit and look at my garden and just take that moment, not have a phone going, take that moment just to kind of enjoy every sip. That is a pocket of pleasure. Like my dream life involves me having a coffee somewhere with the sun on my skin, looking at the water. Those are and I try and cultivate as many opportunities as possible to have exactly that. It's not stuff. And again, these things live in two different realms. You have the intimacy, the pleasure, the desire, the sensuality, and then you have, and that's slow and that's vulnerable. And then you have the, kind of the more go go go, push push push, get things done, and you'll be fine, put it in a box, ignore it, and that's driven by a lot of shame, because we need to like grind and grasp. And sometimes we do. I work very hard as well. I'm not just like wafting around in a robe. I wish. That would be lovely to earn my living that way, just kind of wafting around like, drinking out of pretty teacups all day. But I think it's just important to integrate the pieces that you can.
You have to write your second book on this. You have to. The way the words flowed in this section, like the circle of sensual sorcery. I'm just like, this is so good. It's so good. So I could
Well, if you want, yeah, I'm happy to give you a little exclusive. So I may or may not be working on something, and it may or may not live in the erotic fiction sphere.
well, here we go. I think this is
Yeah.
I'm gonna get the first copy because this, but it's more around the fact that this is so linked to shame and so inhibitive and such a big part because as you started this, it's such a big part of you, of your, and and like just the fact that you limit yourself from not thinking, well, why couldn't I have my bedroom how I want my bedroom in this life? But we
Yeah.
do that on all, oh, because it should be this way and it should, bedrooms don't come in dark walls with,
What will people think when they
yeah,
come
it's, and
round?
it
Like,
happens with everything, right?
yeah, what will my daughter's friends think if they come on a play date and they walk in and it's like, I don't know, Maleficent's kind of, I hope they go, cool, or don't care because they're probably asking me for sweets or something else. Like it's, yeah, it's very, but it's such a, I was just thinking about something that you said then. And for me, the reason that I know that I'm sort of shame free and particularly that work around sensuality and pleasure and desire is I just don't think about things anymore. Like you say, like I would have thought, oh, I can't do that, or what will people think, or what would happen. And I do work with this really beautiful lingerie brand. They're amazing called Bordel. I love them. I love the women that own the business that start it. I love their reason why. It's like sort of bondagey style. That's the kind of style of it, but it's so beautiful. It's amazing. And I was chatting to them yesterday about something. They've got a new range coming out. I was like, oh, can I get a couple of those pieces? It'd be really cool. I want to style it. And I don't even think about that anymore. Whereas before it'd be like, well, you couldn't possibly do that. Or what will
Mm.
people say if you go out with that over a shirt for dinner or, whatever it might be. And you're like, no, this is just, and guess what? No one notices. I mean, maybe someone might, but I don't notice if they're noticing me. I'm just doing me. It's no different to me changing my hair or something else. It's just integrating something that for me is a huge part of who I am. And I'm just not denying it anymore. And the thing that I think I've come to realize through all of this work with Shane, and I would say to my younger self or anyone else, is like, I almost have this kind of grief and sadness for the amount of years and time that I spent resisting my true essence, like how long I spent pushing me away, and trying to be anything other than who I really was. The amount of time I tried to follow a trend, to make that work for me, to be like other people, and no one's like other people because we're all ourselves. And I'm trying to push myself into a box, and that ended up with me self-harming because I
Mhm.
felt so unhappy inside and I couldn't fit into this mold. And I just really want to say to anybody listening to this that, I mean, yes, I've fully drunk the Kool-Aid and I'm completely okay to talk about this openly and it to go out anywhere and anyone to listen to it, and great. But that has been a journey of slowly, unraveling and unpacking the pieces and really embracing who I am. Like I turn 44 next week. Like I think there's a little bit of fun in aging as well, and wisdom and living the way that I live and just embodying who I am. But I'm so peaceful with me. And that's the biggest gift. And I'm an eccentric mix of many, many, many paradoxes. I can be this sort of, I guess, like in that space, a desiry space, I'm still a type A. I'm still, bossing. We chatted off there. I'm still bossing, things for work. I've still got big aspirations that it might well be bondage in the boardroom. Who knows? But I'm still an amazing mum. I'm still a
Mm,
great partner to my
mm.
boyfriend. I'm very nurturing. You might not think I'm going to be cooking a lovely meal or something like that, but I'm all of these different parts. And that has given me so much peace because I think I resisted that part of me, and it was such an anchor point. It was such an essential piece. And like I say, that energy, that animosity towards myself, that horrible negative inner voice that we have about us, about why we're wrong, listening to shame tell me why I was wrong and broken and shouldn't feel like that. And why can't I be like everybody else? And guess what? We chatted off there about retreats and things. Everyone else, I think, feels like me and you. So we need to be having these conversations to go, this kind of thing we've been presented with maybe helped us out here and there, but we have free will, and this is the way that I choose to use mine.
That's amazing. That statement, everyone should go back and listen to that piece because if you're struggling, that's it in a nutshell. Like, and I think that's it because you were working in a very male dominated environment. You were very successful, but it ended up with you self-harming and doing all these other things, and there's trauma and there's all of this thing going on. And then now, and you were trying to force yourself to be the housewife and to fit the perfect picture of what you thought that looked like or what we get shoved that should look like. And
Mhm.
in every aspect, right? Everyone's sort of aspiring to do something like that. But then we actually, what you've unpacked, and I'm really glad we started at this point and didn't just build up to it because actually, this is probably the point that you should start at and then work back to why society and all the things we get fed have thrown us off course and all this shame.
Mhm.
It is shame. It's bloody shame that's kept us
Mhm.
trapped and there's no liberation. But when you break those shackles and you realize that you can like something because it's you, or that you can stop doing something because you're people pleasing, and it's going to end up with you resisting you. It's like you're fighting yourself, like, or you can be loving
Mhm.
yourself, and
Mhm.
and that comes in a different form of expression. But that feels freaking awesome when you do that. Like it's bloody good.
Totally. I honestly think as well, like I think that these old school sort of patriarchal structures are in place. They're just laughing at us. They're like, oh, look at them now, like infighting, following these things that we tell them they should do, just basically anything other than being our nature, anything other than being with ourselves, like all these different things I mean, the thing that pisses me off the most, I think thankfully we're moving away from it a bit, is this like morning routine stuff. It makes me so angry because that's an opportunity for shame first thing in your day. Who on earth can implement a 10-step? I mean, maybe if you're in your early 20s and you live in Dubai and something, whatever, I don't know, like maybe, and you don't
Not with
have any
kids. Yeah,
responsibilities.
yeah,
Definitely not with kids. But even then, I think like you're going to have a day where you just don't really feel like that. I don't, you know what? Here's everyone. I don't journal. I'm a therapist and a coach and an author, and I don't journal because my handwriting is appalling. I write books. I write my words out. I voice note myself on
yeah,
WhatsApp.
yeah.
I'll go for a walk and people might think I'm on a call, and quite often I'm just speaking into WhatsApp because it might end up being something I use for writing, but it's a way of me. That's my stress release. That's my kind of active meditation, like I'll go and touch a tree or something like that. So I just hate this 10-step. Did I home make organic granola for my kid this morning? No. Am I a slummy bitch? Also no. But did I do the thing did I have a beautiful cup of coffee with the sun in my eyes and I feel incredible? Absolutely yes. Is everything else in my day going to be fine? Also yes. So I really want to encourage people again to question where some of this stuff comes from and is it yours? Because spoiler alert, no one is born ashamed. No one is born with shame. It is given to you. And to look through the book and other places, and I think sexual shame is one of the biggest areas. It drives a lot of very shadowy behavior. Let's be honest. A lot of people end up acting in the shadows because they think that what they feel would be unacceptable,
Yeah.
in society. They maybe ostracize themselves, or they behave in ways that are harmful even because they don't feel they can have conversations with a partner, should we say, or something like that, because they've always been told they're wrong. I mean, I have so many clients, met a lot of men, but also women that are either, let's just go there, like they've started an affair at work because they don't feel that they can, they've sort of communication with their partner in their marriage has suffered. Now obviously probably over time, long-term relationship, maybe a few other things, but it's about that. It's about they feel that they've never been able to fully be a version, and of course they've met this person and wow, they get me completely. And the number one reason for affairs is the aliveness. It's not
Right. No,
the individual, it's the feeling of aliveness.
it's that
I've
rush
had,
because it's alluring. Like
yeah,
it's back to the desire, right? And the fact is,
yeah, and
you're being starved.
completely, but you're starving yourself. This is the funny thing. I'm not hating on people that are having affairs, like at all. I'm so unjudgmental. Like, always come to me and talk to me about anything. Like, it's not a judgment piece. But what I do want people to understand is they're like, oh, they make me feel this and they make me feel that. And it's like, no, no, no. They didn't put a light on you. That's a light that's always been in you that you haven't turned on, quite literally. You've either said to yourself that it's unacceptable, or that isn't going to be possible in this relationship container, or you have always had this desire or feeling, but you've never felt safe enough to act on it before. But this never comes from another. It's all the aliveness feeling is something that, again, can be cultivated within yourself and should be in whatever way you choose. But this sort of sensation that it comes from somebody else. I have people that, many things around the sexual shame sphere, and I just feel like the more we can have these conversations, the more that we think, wow, that could be possible for me in this relationship, or maybe just not, but for me in my life. And start embodying, like I say, and kind of expressing who we truly are, and just without the masks.
That's what it is. It's embodying and expressing because that's how it's within you and that's how you know it. The fact that you can feel it with somebody else and it's not your partner, but it's got nothing to do with that stimulus.
No.
It's just the fact that they brought that out of you. And that's what you're talking about when you go through life and it's with you all the time. It's just you're not tapping into it. Maybe you're not aware it's there. But once you are, my goodness, you tuned in and you're also tuned into everything else that is. And it's pretty good,
Yeah,
but
it's life
you
force, it's
can't go
life force
back.
energy.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't sort of unknow that.
Mm-mm.
But at least you can be authentic and move through that. So that is just one part of the book. This book touches on many topics. And I think one of the parts that I really also enjoyed was radical self-love and like thinking through what is radical self-love?
So radical self-love is kind of, it links to all of this. Like, it's the idea, it's the antidote to the poison of self-doubt, is what I write. Radical self-love is the antidote to the poison of self-doubt. And it's true, because if you're listening, we talked about it, if you're resisting yourself, if you're telling yourself that these parts of you are wrong, if you're ashamed of pieces of you, and by the way, shame can only win while you think you're the only one and you're broken. It's got like a audience, it's on transmute, and you're just there receiving it all the time, all day long. Then the inner critic and anxiety sits on top of it. That's its like sort of symptomatic surface level behavior. But for as long as shame's got hold of you, telling you that you're the only one, there's something wrong with you, and then you're employing all of your time and energy into resisting you, and then probably employing money and other things into trends, other stuff we talked about, trying to be like other people, whoever other people supposedly are that you think you should be, because you just fundamentally can't be yourself. That sounds bloody exhausting. And it was,
Yes.
right? That was I'm doing my job, I'm got a kid, I'm doing loads of other stuff, and then I've got to try and be anything other than myself. In every aspect of who I am. And so I need to try and be really bloody perfect. So I'm going to try and look perfect, act perfectly, get the best results in anything I do, be the number one at everything, have the tidiest house, the tightest body, the this, the that, the other. I'm going to try and do all these things so perfectly. And guess what happens? You come crashing down at some point because it's completely unsustainable. And the thing that suffers is your gorgeous little soul. Because every time you do that, every time you go into a relationship, friends as well, I talk about that, work, but romantic relationship in particular, and someone that is not going to match any kind of self-worth. But if you haven't been cultivating that self-worth with radical self-love, if your voice has been that you're bad and you're negative and there's something wrong with you and you need to change everything about you, guess what kind of people you're going to have around you? You're going to settle for scraps because you believe that's what you're worth. You're going to be grateful for anything that comes your way. Well, thank you, but not take too much. And it's like, that is so sad when you think about it. Your poor soul. your poor little self in there that's like, there's nothing, I just want you to spend some time with me. Even like, imagine it like a young child just sitting there waiting to be asked to play, or just, oh, you're not coming again today. You know that, oh, you're not going to come and get me again today. Okay, I'll just sit here and hide away. Oh, I just better hide away. Had I don't let anyone know you're here. You know, hide away. Like, okay, well, I won't do anything. I won't say anything wrong. And that is why we must have radical self-love, because unless we do that, unless we take a stand for ourselves, and we can call it the inner child, we can call it our soul, we can call it whatever anyone wants to connect to, but unless we start taking a stand for ourselves and saying, do you know what? Like I talked about the paradoxes of me, I am all these different bits and pieces, and sometimes I don't make any sense, maybe even to myself, definitely not my boyfriend, but I love me anyway. And
Mm.
I'm going to choose to love each piece of me so much and just peacefully. And guess what? My vibration goes up, not because I'm pushing it. If we're looking even at manifestation, guess what's happening to me? I'm on a different level of alignment. What kind of people are leaving my life? Those that shouldn't have been in there, that were benefiting from my broken pieces. Who's walking in? People that, again, want to value and uplift me to the next place that I'm meant to be going. And it doesn't have to be hard work. Like, it doesn't have to, the hard work is you resisting yourself. The hard work is the anxiety that you feel every single day trying not to be you. I mean, the hard work was me hacking at my face in the shower twice a day, never feeling the pain of it, with blood running down my hands because I was in so much internal anguish. That was hard work. That was living every day with shame. Living every day accepting that I am who I am and I love me anyway. There is no work in that, like none at all. You know, walking through my daily life, like I say, not thinking about what I might wear to a certain thing or what other people might think of me, or, you know, knowing I'm a good person, I'm acting in my integrity, but I'm also looking after me. I don't have anxiety, very rarely. You know, usually after a few wines and I deserved it. Like, you know, I don't have, yeah, I don't live my life with that constant inner monologue of reasons that I'm not enough, and then the things I have to do to prove that I am, and that only end up digging you further and further, either into a hole or away from yourself. Like, that is why we must turn all of this energy that we're using into finding things or others to supposedly fulfill ourselves. We have to take a radical stand for ourselves. That's radical self-love.
I love radical self-love. I love how you
Yeah.
explain that. That's amazing. And the piece, the broken pieces of ourselves, they're benefiting from the broken pieces. That is, wow. That just blows my mind, those words. Yeah, that's so
It's so
true.
true because you're compliant. You're more compliant when you're broken, right?
And
You're gonna comply. You're gonna say yes. You're gonna be smaller. You just, you know, you're gonna go along with things. You're gonna be more digestible. But to who? You know, and who
Mm.
really is benefiting if you're not you? You know, if I'm not showing up as myself, I can't connect with people properly because I'm performing, and I'm also doing them a disservice because it's not really me.
And I think you've hit upon something. Like I must say, you're radiant. You are radiant. There's a massive radiance and light coming from you. And I think, but the cool thing is here, that doesn't mean it's all about it just being pushed. I think something you talked about there, which I want to tap into, is more. There's a flow to it, and that's where you're not pushing, you're not flogging yourself to go harder or to be something. You're not people pleasing or fawning or doing all this those parts that you talk about, but you're able to be these different parts of you, and you're able to express. You're able to be, like you said, the dominatrix in one world, but then the cook in another world, and be the nurturer and the humility and the it can be all things, but that's what brings that light
Mm-hmm.
through that authenticity. But it's just I can't describe how well you have articulated and nailed this concept of shame, and then how to heal it without giving a prescribed manual. I love the fact that you must have fought with your publishers to push them to not do the prescribed way of what they think a book is and how it should be to actually get to the masses. And you must have stuck to your guns. I can see this and done, and you must have battled, because this is great, because
I
and
did,
they
yeah.
need to know this is how books should be to really hit the core of someone. It's the
Yeah,
way
we
it
had
should be.
I had to thank you for saying that because, shall we say, I was unapologetic in my stance that I would not. I refused to do a how to, a 10 steps, a click your fingers and turn around 3 times and you're rid of shame. I refuse, I wouldn't do it. And I said, because it's like there's no integrity to it and people they won't be helped. And then all I'm doing is adding at best another band-aid to a pile of things that people are trying. God love them. If people are, it really upsets me. The thing that probably upsets me the most is there are a lot of people out there in our space who are trying to profiteer from people's pain and they have no desire whatsoever to help people get better.
Scary,
They
isn't
have a
it?
desire to keep. It's terrifying. The fake guru space is terrifying. So they have the spiritual bypassing, the follow my method, when people are very much entirely commercially driven. Can you be successful and help people? Absolutely, yes. Can you be successful at the detriment to others? I really hope not. And I hope that the lid is being lifted on a few
Mm.
of these things right now, because I know some people that are there and it's entirely commercial and it's just push, 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 all of these things just to get. And the worst bit about it is you have these beautiful broken human souls who, God love them, are spending what money they have, what energy they have, what time they have, trying to get out of this space themselves, right? And then you've got these people who are charlatans, who are profiteering from pain, that know that what they're pushing out there is snake oil and will never help anybody. But it says, hey, pay me $99 for this course and I'll cure your anxiety like 5,000 other people. And then when it doesn't work for me, guess who wins? Shame. Oh, well, it didn't work for you. You're so ruined. You're so fucked up because look, it worked for 5,000 other people. Look at all those testimonials. You're the only one. You're the only one it didn't work for. And I hate that. Like, I hate it so much. So, yes, thank you for saying that because I did have a bit of a ding dong more than once. And I was,
Hmm.
and like my editor in the end, who's amazing, she was like, who was doing so she's external, but she was doing my kind of editing. She worked on Paloma Faith's book as well, MILF. And Liz, she's awesome. And she was like, I think you may have started a new genre here. Because, it switches between almost like poetry to kind of, and I was like,
Yes.
good, because this is, because shame needed a voice and I've translated shame. No one's done that. And it isn't pretty and perfect and one chapter and 10 steps and clap your hands. That is not how it works. And I had to be so real about it. Otherwise, people are never going to get a handle on, oh, I talked off air. There was a lady that read it that says she was in Spain on holiday and she dropped to her knees and like let out like because
Mm.
there was something she read that she'd been fighting, holding in, resisting her whole 50 years of life, pretty much. And reading those pages and it coming through her, she couldn't hold that in anymore. And what happened to her? It was a huge release.
Mm.
And then she knew she wasn't alone and shame was out and it couldn't stay in there any longer. So thank you for saying that because I fought to, and we're going to fight for the unabridged version.
I
Yeah, I
believe I
fought for
believe that should
the,
be.
yeah, I'm gonna also, I really want to do in-person talks as well because you'll understand because you've written. So a few of the people in there, the client case studies, we had to change names because of
Yes.
the lawyers because some of the persecutors are still alive. However, they are amazing and they want to share their story to help other people. So I want to do an event for like the people within the pages and have some of the experts and some of the people who are the case studies come on stage and then have have a run in the audience that we can just speak our shame into the light and leave lighter. And I want to do that
Wow.
as well. So it's coming.
Oh, you have to. That's brilliant, and that is the book is brilliant because the book is an antidote. I and just going back to the part where you were cutting yourself and abuse, and you're almost not sorry that you're doing it, and then just the words, the relief,
Mm.
the silent scream that lived just below my skin, like it's just like it's so real, and in that realness, you say it's not pretty. But it's in that realness and in your vulnerability, in your authenticity, in your willingness to give in this way and just go, here it is. You can get to know me. You can get to know yourself. And I think that's what
Mm.
you're allowing people to then release the shame and they're literally
Totally.
letting go of it. And the book is doing it. And
When
it's,
I was when I was reading that, I was doing the audiobook. So you've done it probably, you're in the studio and you're like, I was reading that part of the book. And as when I finished reading it, it was a lady that was producing it, super cool. Her lovely doggy was in the other room, and she came round and she had lots of tattoos, and she was like, I used to cut myself. And she said every single word he wrote, including that you weren't sorry. Like, because that's the thing, at that moment, I wasn't sorry. At that moment, I didn't feel pain. At that moment, it did give me something. And I kept doing it because it did give me something. And the more we just go, bad, that's not helping shame out, is it? That's not lifting something out. But yeah, literally me doing that. And she was in, as you know, through the glass, the room next door, and we as two women had this conversation, and she felt seen and witnessed. And she said, as I went through it, she's like, I obviously do this all day, this is my job, but every single thing you've talked about has made her think about relationships. She was going back to talk to her friends about it. Like, this is the reason that I always maintain that this book is way bigger than me. People are like, oh, you wrote a book, well done. And it's like, kind of, yes, thank you. And I'm not saying that to be modest, but I really believe that this is a movement, and it's more important than me. It just is. And that's why the other people that put their stories in, and that's, me doing that with her, and us having that conversation, and you doing this and sharing it with your clients. Like, this is way more important than me. Like, I want that my name is tiny on the spine, on the cover. I wanted the book to stand out. That's why we designed it that way. And like, I wanted it to be a statement that, you would have it on the tube or a flight or the beach, and be like, yes, I am reclaiming. I am reclaiming.
And the design, and it's all very you. It's all very well done. I really do like it. And I think what you're showing people, just because I know we're going to wrap up right now, is that in order to feel alive and free, you've been pursuing it in different ways out there, and yet you just have to read Unapologetic, and it will show you, it will set you free and liberate you in all the ways you want to be free, that you
Mm.
perhaps don't even know you could be free, or that you are bondaged in that way. And it's like, yeah, it's super special, really a game changer book. And I think this is going to be a staple book for the industry, for people that like a foundational book for this
I
type
hope so. I hope so. I want it to
of
be
movement.
evergreen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's to end this then. That's the impact you want to have with the book. That's what you want.
Yeah. I want it to, the reason, so when I was in my darkest moments with the worst anxiety I ever had, when I was harming, when I felt completely alone, when anxiety and shame had me absolutely in its grasp, the thing I needed was hope. And I used to like scour chat forums looking for anything, any story that sounded a bit like me. I had like a very serendipitous moment the other day because I would look on like Mumsnet, because I was like, my daughter was young. So I'm trying to look for answers where, I left my marriage and it worked out okay. And my daughter was this age, and I got my happy ever after. I was looking for that, like, and things worked out fine, because I was so anxious. And of course I didn't get it, but I got bits. You'd recognize yourself in one post, you'd see something in an Instagram thing, I'd see bits of me in different places, but there wasn't that feeling of hope. And maybe it never is, because you've ultimately got to take a leap and it is a bit unknown. But I created this book. It's the keys to healing, it's the keys to your peace, because this is the thing that I needed in that moment. If I'd had that in that moment, it would have saved me a lot of anguish. If I'd had that in that moment, it may not have changed the challenges that I had to go through, sort of material realm on the surface, but it would have changed how I felt about me. And that's what I want for people to have. I want them to know that they're not alone. And if you know you're not alone, you have hope.
Wow. Annalie Howling, thank you. This has been remarkable. I knew it'd be good. I knew it'd be good. I knew the book would be good. But again, you've surpassed all expectations, and you've done it in a way that's adding and creating value from a place deep within. And I just thank you for your heartfelt honesty, authenticity, for you being you, your radical self-love, and for being unapologetic and just literally shining bright. Like, it's just sensational. Thank you.
Well, I'd also like to thank you for being such an amazing ally, because there aren't always men in the space that are kind of, here to cheer. And your honesty and how you're resonating, how you're cheering for me, how you're sharing the book with your clients, but you becoming such a strong ally in this space, in this movement, is essential. So thank you.
No, I will continue to do that. I was literally talking to a client today and saying, you have to read this book. This is the next step for you. And the same thing with the posts that you put out, like just sharing those posts, getting this movement out there, because I know it's going to help people.
Thank you.